Welcome to the Revelation of Hope podcast with your host, Alvin Bonds II. Join us each week as Alvin explores the relationship between leadership and families by interviewing leaders in different fields all over the world. Alvin believes that the success of tomorrow's leaders begins with the success of today's families.
Hello, and welcome to the Revelation of Hope podcast. I am your host, Alvin Bonds II, and this is episode 25. Today, I interviewed Demir and Carey Bentley. We'll discover from their interview that Demir and Carey are productivity coaches. But before we get to that interview, I invite you to reflect on your own lives and how productive are you in your life? How productive are you in business, your personal life with your family? And we'll discover from the interview how to be productive and successful while living the lifestyle that we want. Kerry is the CEO of Lifehack Bootcamp and is known for her ability to create streamlined team workflows and processes in teams of all sizes. Previously, she was a brand marketer for large CPG companies. Kerry's passion is used in experiential education to help people achieve their peak levels of work and play. Formerly a rising star at Kraft Foods and Pop Chips, she founded Lifehack Bootcamp when she was 24. Kerry is a tour de force example for young female entrepreneurs gleefully breaking through age and gender stereotypes. She is passionate about hacking neuroscience and psychology to unleash peak performance. She is also the founder of the LA Marketing Social Club and is featured in the upcoming book Millennial Gambit, Stories of Why We Chose Entrepreneurships by Elliot Lum. Demir Bentley is the head trainer and head of coaching and curriculum at Lifehack Bootcamp and has worked in senior roles in technology, finance, and government. Demir helps people break through the barriers preventing them from their peak performance at work so they can go home to a fulfilling personal life. More recently, he has been an educator, speaker, and coach. A frequent commentator on trends in the digital video space, Demir has spoken on panels at CES, South by Southwest, Digital Hollywood, and more. He has also been a guest on Bloomberg, CNBC, and Fox Business News. Through Lifehack Bootcamp, Demir and Kerry have hosted over 25 bootcamps in the last 3 years and have graduated more than 400 alumni. The industry rate of completion is 3%. Lifehack Bootcamp has a 97% completion rate. Demir and Kerry credit their success with keeping our heads down and focusing on the product and the clients and being advocates for our client success. It's an honor to have Demir and Carey on for today's podcast. Well, Demir and Carey, welcome to the podcast. Would you take a moment and tell us about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So Kerry and I are the husband and wife team behind Lifehack Bootcamp. We are productivity and systems consultants and trainers, which is just a fancy way of saying that we help small business owners, people who own a business between 10 employees and 200. We help them really get powerful about how they're working and how their entire team is working so they can unleash their best performance at work and at home. Because there's so many people out there, whether they're in charge of a big team or whether the big boss of the whole company, who feel like, yeah, I'm doing well, but I'm not the person I can be at home as a husband.
Totally. And that was exactly the place where we were, just a couple of years ago, probably about a decade ago, as we were, working 9 to 5 kind of typical corporate jobs and just ruining our health and ruining our relationships, no time for anything but work. And we decided one day, when our bodies actually gave out on us and we developed chronic stress-related illnesses, we decided that we weren't going to be willing to live like that anymore. And so that's kind of how this whole business got started in the first place.
Yeah, so a good way to think about it is if life is like a Rubiks Cube and our job is to solve all 6 sides of the Rubiks Cube, we had solved the career side, and This is pretty common, isn't it? We'd solved the career side at the expense of every other side, at the expense of our health and our marriage and our relationships and everything else we wanted to do in our life. And so for us, we had this office space moment, if you want to call it that, where we just said, we can't live like this. We're only going to live a life where we put our family first and we focus on solving all the sides of the Rubiks Cube at the same time.
I love it. And what I love just most about you all's story is that you work together. Is you as a couple are working together. Tell me how that came about.
Oh, yeah, totally. It was funny because, you don't see a lot of couples who work together. And in fact, when we started working together, our friend, one of our really good friends, took us aside and she was like, don't do it. You're going to ruin everything. It's not going to work.
It's going to end in divorce.
Yeah, exactly. And, we gave it a shot anyway. And I think one of the reasons why it works so well for us is because we understand that our relationship comes first.
Yeah.
The business doesn't come first. It's about our life together first and foremost.
Yeah, most people who are working together, a lot of times what you'll find is that they're in the industry that they have a lot of their ego connected to. So, like, I've been a lawyer, and then my wife's a lawyer, and then we create a law firm together. And so we're both bringing a lot of ego to that. When Kerry and I created this business, it was not something she had been doing, and it was not something I had been doing. And in fact, the only reason we created it is because we looked at each other and said, we cannot create the family and the life that we want in our current careers. So let's start something that's totally different. It's a vehicle for our family. And that emphasis, where it's from the very inception of this company, it was always about being a vehicle for our marriage and for our family, rather than being a vehicle for, say, earning money or our ego. That, I think, has made all the difference.
Yeah, and plus, we really love spending time together. And when we were both working other jobs, we just were so depressed by how little we got to see each other. And we were seeing our coworkers so much more than we were seeing each other.
Yeah.
And so one of sort of the tenets when we were redesigning our life was like, hey, we actually have to do the same thing. We want to see more of each other.
I love that. And would you take a moment and tell us about your business, the Lifehack Bootcamp?
Yeah, so what we do is we do a 60-day immersive productivity training where basically you can think about it as like just all of our clients want to be the LeBron James of whatever it is they do. They want to achieve not just excellent results, they want to be the absolute best in the world, and they know that if they want to achieve that top 1% performance, they need to look at everything in their life, from everything Monday through Friday. How do I wake up? How much sleep am I getting? What are my morning routines? How do I get my work started? How do I prioritize? How do I deflect email? Everything about work. And so you can think about us as pro sports coaches, but instead of teaching you basketball, we teach you how to be the very, very best at running your day. And we do it for 60 days.
Yeah, and you can think of it also as like a lot of our clients want to have a similar lifestyle where they're working less, but they're working so smart. And they have that free time where they can either be spending it with their families, or maybe they move their business abroad so they can travel more. And so we show them how to work what we call an intelligent 4-day work week so that they have the space to do that.
And one of the things, just to tag on to that, one of the things that's like our personal delight, and just like brings so much personal meaning to this, is, people don't start businesses or, grow businesses in order to get trapped in the business. Mm-hmm. They started it because they wanted to have freedom of money, freedom of time. And what all happens all too often as a small business owner is you end up having a successful business where everybody's getting paid except for you. Everybody's getting vacation except for you, right? And so you very much become trapped in the business. And what's our unique pleasure is showing people how to get those businesses running themselves so that they can truly realize the dream that they had in the first place, which is to get the freedom.
And can you walk us through, what does that process look like? Tell us about the journey when someone starts your program.
Yeah, it's a bit of an immersive process. We call it productivity immersion. So what we do is we hand select 30 A-plus people. These are business owners with businesses between 10 to 200 people, usually in the high 6 figures to anywhere up 7 figures, even 8 figures, or executives at companies. So what we do is curate a group of people that are really impressed with one another, frankly, people who are seeking to be the very best. Yes. And then I coach that group for 60 days. Every single week we do 2 live calls together to make sure that you're getting that kind of coaching. And then there's videos you work on your own, and then you're matched up with another person. You get a buddy in that group, and you're holding each other accountable as well. And so it's really 4 layers of accountability instead of 1. And so people know at the end of the day that to be their best, they need accountability, they need coaching, they need the best techniques. And so all we do is we give that. It's very simple.
Yeah, but I would say like the key here and what makes it different is that it's all about converting what you know into something that you actually do, right? And because we all know all this stuff, we've been absorbing all this knowledge from books and from, peers for decades and decades, but we get so frustrated with ourselves because we don't do it. Like, we know what we should be doing, but we aren't doing it. And so what Demir's talking about here with the accountability, and we have actually 4 different types of accountability that we integrate, is it encourages you to turn what you know into something that you do, because, that's the focus, is creating that massive action, which is going to get you those rapid results.
I'm curious to know, where did this idea come from? How did you all get this vision that you have to, transform people's lives? Where did this come from?
It's a great question. And what's so funny about that question is how entirely obvious this model is, what we do, and how entirely overlooked it was. Because when you look at when you look at the highest levels of human performance, playing the piano or the violin or the military or pro sports, you see a structure very similar to ours. You have a coach and coaching staff. You have a program they're running that has been evolved, that's taking the best of what works and leaving what doesn't work. And you've got a massive amount of accountability. And you see that in sports, you see it in music, you see it in the arts, you see it everywhere. You even see it in church. But the funny thing is, it's very normal for somebody to say, oh, I have a swimming coach, or I have a tennis coach. But it's not normal at all for people to say, I have a productivity coach.
Totally.
Which is so funny.
I mean, I wish I could say that we were sort of called to this, like we woke up one day and decided to create this company, but we created it because we needed these tools. I mean, like I mentioned before, we were literally bedridden, and we had such bad stress-related illnesses that we needed to figure out a way to cut out the overwhelm and cut down our hours working so we could actually live our lives. And so as we started doing that, our friends took notice, and they were asking us, they were like, how are you doing this? How are you getting so much done, but yet doing all this cool stuff and traveling and having an awesome life?
Yeah, so just sort of like wrap up the thought there, it's just funny that ironically it's very natural for us to get coaching and accountability in sports and music and all these other things, but that doesn't make us any money, does it? Right? But it's in our productivity and our performance where that coaching and that accountability and that pressure can actually turn into having more time to spend with your family. It can turn into getting a promotion. It can turn into making a business successful and creating the business of your dreams. And so that's the funny thing is, when you ask me this question, like, how did you get this idea? The funny thing about us is it felt like this idea was so obvious that we had to look around for almost months because we were so sure that it had to be done somewhere else, and we realized that it wasn't being.
What would you say to someone that may have an idea like you all have, or like what happened with you discovered, something was missing? What would you say to encourage them to, I guess, what would be the first step in making that, not only dream come true, but making it profitable?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, the very, very first step before doing anything else is really to define what you want your lifestyle to look like.
Oh, yeah.
So even before you talk about the business concept or anything like that, really making sure that you're bringing that focus towards, like, do I want to have a life where I can work from anywhere? How many hours do I want to be spending at home? Or am I okay being, like, for example, tied down to a certain city? But really defining that for your life so that you're building a business that actually really makes you fulfilled and happy.
Yeah, that was perfect. That was exactly the first point. I think the second thing that Kerry and I did that we don't see people doing a lot is you want to give yourself the most runway. Yeah. So if you put yourself in the city, in a position, in a place with the people that you want to be living, and put yourself in a financial and living space where you can live very cheaply as you're getting this off the ground. And so for Kerry and I, we put everything on the table. Even though I had been incredibly successful on Wall Street and I had a whole career, we even talked about moving in with my parents for a couple of years. And that's what I call moving 2 steps back in order to move 10 steps forward. Yeah. Right? Because if you're really going to start to make a business work, you can make any business work given enough time and runway. And that's something that people don't think about. It's when your expenses are too high and when you think you can do it in 6 months, but it's actually going to take 3 years, that's when people crash the plane. But if you've got an infinite amount of runway, if you could have 10 years to make a company work, almost anybody can make it work. And so that's just having that runway. Yeah,
that's definitely the second step. And I would say the third step is something that's going to be really critical to get you through those tough moments when you don't have, motivation anymore. And it's to really connect yourself to the problem that you're solving. It's to connect to yourself, what's the impact you're actually making in other people's lives? because that is what gets addictive, and that is what makes us want to work every single day, is just seeing the results that our clients get and just feeling that huge sense of reward from seeing them, achieve their dreams.
Yeah, and, it's funny, I'll tag on to that. I don't know if this is the fourth part or if it's just like, a second part of Kerry's. But, when don't focus on the solution that you think people are going to want, because invariably people aren't going to want your app or your business or your coaching. Focus on the problem, right? And the problem that we focus on is that people walk in the door every single night all over the country, and the norm, 9 out of 10 people walk in the door, and instead of saying, "Good job today, Alvin, you did a great job," people walk in the door and they say the opposite. They say, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe I worked so hard and I got nothing done. I feel so unproductive. I feel so ashamed." And so the problem, when we started, we were not going to do a 60-day productivity immersion. We were going to do videos that were going to be available online. But as we started working on the problem, we realized that the solution, we were working on the right problem, but we didn't have the right solution. And so really having a lot of runway and sitting with our customers and our clients and working with them and understanding how they wanted this problem to be solved allowed us to keep pivoting solutions until we landed on the right solution, but we never pivoted problem. We connected ourselves to the problem like a dog with a bone and said, no matter what we do, whether it's writing books or teaching courses or doing one-on-one coaching, I don't care what it is, we're going to help people walk in at the door at the end of the day and feel like I nailed it. I had a great work day and I'm proud of myself.
I love that. And I was looking at your all's website and I looked at your core values. And one of the things that I noticed in all of them is they're so inclusive. There's this mindset of we and working together. And from that, I'm interested in knowing what is your individual philosophy of leadership?
That's great. I'll go first. For me, I had an experience of being a CEO of a tech company that was a top 10 iTunes photo and video app. We raised $1.5 million. And in spite of all that, I look back and realize I wasn't that great of a leader. There's aspects of leadership that I'm good at, and there's aspects that I realized I was deficient at. For me, the aspects that I admire the most in Kerry, who's the CEO of our company, is I think ultimately a leader is somebody that you want to look at and say they are keeping the trains running on time, right? If you walk up to Kerry in our business and you ask her, "Hey, last week, Kerry, what were our Facebook conversion costs for our ads?" She'd be able to tell you right away. Yeah. She wouldn't have to go look it up. She's the kind of person who's willing to get into those details and keep the trains running on time, and nobody likes to do it, and Kerry doesn't like to do it. But she does it because that's the definition of leadership, is creating a safe space so that the other people in your company can continue to operate and do what they do well. And so I can tell you what I admire in Kerry's leadership, and it's that.
Thank you. Yeah. One of the things I'm focused on the most is making sure that my employees are feeling entirely self-expressed and really fulfilled with the work that they do for us. Because, my job as their leader is to make that happen for them. So not just to fulfill the lives of our clients, but also in every single team member, are they reaching their long-term goals? Are they working in the way where they feel empowered and appreciated? That's really what I'm thinking about every day, is how am I creating the culture and the environment for that to take place.
And what I've just really appreciated and just, listening to your own talk is you all have a rhythm in how you speak, and it just flows very fluidly. And I'm interested in knowing, what does leadership look like in your marriage and your relationship? Because it may, I wonder if it's similar to your business or if it's different. Tell us about that.
Definitely. I can start first with that if you want. I would say, we value our marriage so highly, and it's, the relationship to each other is our most important priority. And so I think definitely, being really good listeners and being really good communicators is the foundation of that. And we've both done a lot of personal development work on ourselves, something I would highly recommend to anybody in a relationship too, because it just enables you to communicate and understand how you can shift to accommodate the other person and what they value, because everybody values different things, right? It was like when we were born, we were each handed a different set of instructions for how to think about things and what to believe in. But yet we communicate with each other as if we were handed the same exact set of instructions. Mm-hmm. And so it's really this dance of figuring out, hey, like, are you talking about playing chess right now, or are you talking about playing checkers right now?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I really delight in our relationship and in our marriage is, we have an aspiration to get more childlike as we age, right? I don't admire adulthood at all. I don't admire, formal, stiff adults. The people I look to who are 70, 80 years old that I admire the most are people who are more childlike. They're more filled with wonder, more filled with excitement. Yeah. And so, we have a high value in self-expression. Like when a child is upset, they're really upset right then, right in the moment. They're not expected to stuff it down or save it for later. And so when I'm upset, by upset I don't mean acting badly or acting out, but when I'm displeased with something or I'm upset, I'm allowed to express it right then. And Kerry will shift into a space of holding space for that rather than take it personally. She'll let me vent it right then, get it out, and then we move on. And whether that's in the middle of our workday or in the middle of something, and it's the same way for when we're extremely happy and excited. So it feels like a relationship where we don't have to stuff things down. If we're upset or we're super happy or we're squealing with excitement, like we get to be that right in that moment, and the other person will shift into being a container for that emotion.
That shifting process, that's the key of it, because we don't just have one side to our personality. I mean, every person has. It's almost like everyone has multiple personalities, right? Depending on their mood and where they're at and what's happening. And so we love to be able to shift and just really acknowledge and honor each side of that in the other person. I think that really helps us communicate well.
Yeah, but I think what that means in practice is that our antenna is always very out to read the other person's energy. I remember the other night, we have just like any couple, we have a good healthy baby talk. Like that really that intimate, childlike speak that you have with each other. Yeah. And I came into the room and I said, babe, I'm tired, right? And then I looked at her face, and instantly I could tell she was way more tired than me. Yeah. And so instead of us both being tired at the same time, I switched into being like, oh no, you're more tired than me. And I went and I comforted her. And we've got this ability to do that rapid switching of always having our antenna out to that even if we have a need, if we can discern that the other person's need is greater, I don't think we earned it, frankly. I don't think we worked on it much. We've just always had that ability to read each other's mood and very quickly shift into the complementary opposite mood.
Yeah, it's definitely a priority for us.
And I'm curious where that comes from, because I could tell it when I saw you on video today. Just one, I'm an expressive person myself, and my work is to read that. But I could tell just how expressive you are, and it energized me and it made me look forward to speaking with you all. But it's evident in the pictures that you take, just the expression. Where does that come from? Did you learn that individually, or was it taught to you?
Gosh.
I mean, well, one thing I'll say is I was born a different boy. I've always...
Demir's very special and unique.
I'm a special person. It hasn't occurred to anybody that, if some people suffer from depression because their brain is wired that way, well, then there's got to be somebody out there who's just wired to permanent happiness. And I'm that one person who's just wired. Like, I wake up in the morning, I did nothing to earn it. I don't deserve it. I just was born with a brain that is really happy. And I wake up happy and I go to sleep happy. And sometimes it's even off-putting.
Yeah, I just think we're so complementary. And literally, Alvin, when we met, we realized that we were meant to be together. I mean, it didn't happen immediately or anything like that, but we are big fans of each other, I guess. We love hanging out. We love talking with each other. I mean, we've spent literally 24 hours together for a couple of years at this point.
Yeah.
And so, we've developed this rapport, and we've learned too that the more we express ourselves, the better we're received. Yep. Instead of trying to cultivate some kind of online persona or make sure everything looks, fine and dandy all the time. Yeah. For us, it's just about, sharing it with the world and being the biggest version of ourselves that we can be, and just communicating that.
Yeah, warts and all.
Would you mind sharing with us, because we've talked about how complementary you are and just how in sync your communication is, and that's so powerful. I'm interested in knowing a challenge or a struggle or hurdle that you all encountered, whether in your marriage or in business, because you all work together. What was that hurdle and how did you overcome it?
I mean, I think it's almost like we can't answer this question until we establish that we're operating at a different level than most people. So most people are going into a job that either they don't like the work or they don't like the work environment. Yeah. So maybe they love being a lawyer, but they don't like the law firm they're working at. They're putting the best of their energy and their hours into that, and then they're coming home depleted, feeling like they don't feel good about what they delivered, and giving their spouse or their significant other like the dregs, the leftovers of whatever energy they have. And we also know studies show that our cognitive load is depleted at that point, so it's easier to get in a fight in the evening when you're tired, you're depleted, right? So when Kerry and I stopped working corporate, and every single day we take a nap together at 1:00 every single day, and if Kerry's feeling depleted or overwhelmed, we can we can call an audible, and we can say, hey, take 2 hours off or take the rest of the day off and go do something nice for yourself. And it changes the scenario, so we don't get in the kind of the fights and the disagreements we had before are not even close to what we have now, because instead of trying to get better at not fighting, which is almost possible, we change the fundamental inputs that were causing fights.
But one thing I would say, one good tactical strategy that we really use well is we have a really very clearly defined roles and responsibilities. Okay. So even though we work really closely together, we don't share tasks or even realms of responsibility. And that was really crucial, because I can remember times when we would clash when we were first starting the business because, for example, maybe I had some ideas about how the coaching should be done, and I was really trying to get Demir to do that, to make that change. And now it's so clear because Demir is the head coach. And so I can have an opinion about his coaching responsibilities, but his word goes. Yeah. If he doesn't agree with me, he gets the final say on that. And I get the final say on other areas like marketing and finance and that kind of thing. And that really creates this really equitable relationship based on trust, where we're very fully self-expressed, but yet, we know who is the actual boss, depending on which area of the business we're talking about.
Absolutely. But I mean, I don't want to evade the question. We still get into, the occasional, spat or something, and it's usually around, not respecting, like we're feeling depleted or somebody's feeling tired, and as you get depleted or tired, you stop speaking politely, or you take some of that softness out of your tone. Yeah. And I'm very sensitive to that around, I want the softness, I want the pleases and thank yous. And so, if we're sure we get in the occasional spat where, I don't like how you're talking to me, or you should have, arranged, we get in, funny spats about you should have arranged the drawer in a different way.
Right, the usual dumb things. Yeah, you can't even remember it afterwards. You're like, what did we even argue about?
Yeah. However, I will say that what doesn't happen anymore is, we don't get into, I would say on a level of 1 to 10, 10 being, oh my God, it's an all-out, drag-out fight. I don't think we've gotten over a level 2 or 3, in the last 3 years. Yeah. Right? It's just the magnitude and the length of these things. And we've just noticed that as we've changed our lifestyle and changed our work and changed the inputs that go into these fights, we've noticed that the magnitude and the duration has gone down. And I've noticed in Kerry an ability to really interrupt, as we're going down that spiral of oh, this is getting bad, an ability to just cut it and stop it and pivot it out. And it's been really amazing to behold.
Yeah. And in my work as a marriage and family therapist, I definitely see what you're talking about. And I encourage, even in relationships for partners to establish those roles and identities. And I love that y'all have done that in your business. One of the things that I personally believe is that the success of tomorrow's leaders begins with the success of today's families. What do y'all think about that?
Oh my goodness, we couldn't agree more.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for sure. I mean, the leadership starts at home, right? And I fully believe that, leaders who don't have, their home life really in order, that reflects very poorly in their business. It really shows where their true priorities are. And since family is the most important thing, in my opinion, that's where your priority needs to be.
Yeah, I think we need to redefine success a little bit in this culture too. Right now, success, it's well publicized that Steve Jobs was not the best husband and not the best father, and yet we celebrate him as the highest pinnacle of success, because the only thing that we're looking at, the only side of the Rubiks Cube that we're evaluating as he was a success is what did he do with his business life. And I think we really need to start looking at all sides of the Rubiks Cube. Look at people who are successful in creating what they want to do in their business, but also raising incredible children and creating a life that's worth living and taking care of their body and their spiritual needs.
And I love the metaphor of the Rubik's Cube. I'm a visual person myself, so that resonates with me so very much. Yeah.
I just want to throw in one more thing really quick. This is sort of, I think you're starting to see too where our passion is. We're not passionate about productivity and performance because we're just productivity nerds. We're passionate because we've seen that it's changed everything for us in every other area of our life. It's almost like that key that once you really lean into that part of your life and create the kind of like working environment, the kind of performance you want, it gives you more resources to be a better wife or mother. It gives you the resources to actually put a little bit more into your body and your self-care. And so that's why we're so passionate about creating this transformation, is that we want to see a world where we're all kicking butt at work, but we're also fully self-actualized and being the kind of people that we want to be at home.
Awesome. Demir and Kerry, I appreciate you so much for joining us on the podcast. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we close?
Alvin, it's been such a pleasure. We are such a huge fan of your mission. We are just in 100% support of that. If anyone wants to get in contact with us, they should check out our website. It's lifehackbootcamp.com. They can also email us personally at Kerry@lifehackbootcamp.com or Demir@lifehackbootcamp.com. We're happy to answer any questions you guys have. And on the website, too, you can sign up, and we send you guys free videos every Monday with our favorite hack of that week. But it's definitely my favorite time of the week is Mondays.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, as well as providing a rating and review. Every week, I will interview a different leader and invite them to share with us their views and perspective on the relationship between leadership and family. Be sure to visit my website. It's www.alvinbonds2nd.com. That's ALVINBONDSII.com. Have a great day.